Hello Internet, Dan here from DansTube.TV, and today I have my before you buy the Mavic Air, which I really enjoy doing these style of videos where I test a product for an extended period and then I let you guys know what I've noticed, the negatives, any positives, and basically if I recommend this product before buying it. That's why I call it before you buy. The Mavic Air will set you back $999 on Amazon. I will have the link in the description below, and this is for the Fly More bundle, which actually includes 3 batteries, the charging hub, and a carrying case and whatnot. So you get a few extra things, but the main reason for getting this is for the additional batteries. The Mavic Air doesn't have a fantastic battery life, so the added batteries is definitely a must-have with the Mavic Air. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the Mavic Air. So the first thing is this unit uses fixed focus. Now, if we compare this to the Mavic Pro actually had manual focus where you either had to tap on the screen or press one of the customized buttons to focus. Now, the Mavic Air, you don't have to worry about that. You can literally just take off and it will just have a fixed focus that will just do the thing that you want it to do. Now, the only problem with this is it seems to prioritize the middle of the frame a lot of the time. So the center of the shot looks relatively well done, but then the outskirts or the outside of that shot just don't seem to have much activity going on. You don't get as much kind of detail and sharpness, and the focus isn't 100% sometimes. Now, this has only been the case for a few of my shots, but it definitely has happened. Obviously, this is something that they could fix with a software update, but I just noticed that sometimes the fixed focus was not always on point and it seemed to prioritize the middle of the frame. One way I seemed to get around this issue was I made sure that I took the drone off. I had a set point where I was going to start filming and I left it there for a few seconds to ensure that it was focused and everything was good, and then I started recording and that seemed to fix my issue that I was having. So overall it could just be a bug or it could just be down to user error, but I mean this should definitely be fixed so it's a little bit more reliable in the future, which I'm sure DJI will do in a future update. The next thing I actually really love about the Mavic Air, it has built-in internal 8GB of storage, so if for some reason you forget your SD card or if your SD card is full, you have a little bit more room to play around with just to get a few more shots. So 8GB isn't massive, but there have been a few times where it's actually trickled into my internal storage and I've been able to record a few extra shots, which I wouldn't have been able to if I used another drone. So I love that internal storage idea and it seems to work really well. I did install a 64GB card though, and the software automatically fills that card before it goes to the internal storage, which I actually really like. Now, one thing that I don't particularly like is the flap on the back of the Mavic Air. So this flap actually exposes the micro SD and the USB-C port. Now, you need to access this area quite frequently, and it's really frustrating to get a micro SD card out of this little awkward spot. So a lot of the time I will just plug in the USB-C cable, which again can be a little bit frustrating with the flap there. But I mean, this is a small thing, but I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that the flap's annoying. The flap is a little bit annoying. One major difference between the Mavic Air and the Mavic Pro is the fact that the Mavic Air uses Wi-Fi transmission, where the Mavic Pro uses OcuSync. So OcuSync allows a lot more range and it's probably a little bit more reliable, seeing as you don't have all of the Wi-Fi connections that you possibly would have in a suburban area if you are flying your Mavic Air. Now, one recommendation, which you should be doing anyway, is make sure you fly away from all sorts of buildings and Wi-Fi frequencies and any sort of frequencies that may interfere with the Mavic Air. One thing I would recommend is make sure that you know your way around the Wi-Fi settings. So this is actually really easy to navigate through. You've just got to click on the 3 dots in the top right corner, then you go to Wi-Fi settings, and it will be defaulted to just an auto channel. So it will automatically go between channels depending on how stable or unstable those channels are. Now you can click on custom, and this will allow you to actually see how stable certain channels are, and you can choose to opt in to 5.8 GHz, which are the higher end of the frequency. That's the 100 mark there. Those channels that are over 100, that's all the 5.8 GHz. Anything below that will be the 2.4 GHz. Now, just make sure that you kind of check this and choose a connection or a channel that's a little bit more stable than the others, because if you're flying in a very dense area with lots of Wi-Fi signals, you might have to opt in for 5.8 GHz or even trying a different 2.4 GHz channel. So that's very easy to have a look through. And one thing that I noticed, I have actually had a few issues with weak signal to my drone, and this was in certain areas that were quite densely populated, but I was well and truly away from everyone and houses and everything else. But it was the fact that there was a lot of tree coverage, and I was still relatively close to a dense suburban area with a lot of different Wi-Fi signals. So I actually lost the video feed, and I was only about 150, 160 meters away, and it even went into return to home, and yeah, I lost that video feed, so I had to wait for it to come back, and then I had to cancel that and manually land it, which was terrifying, and it was something that I actually experienced with the Spark as well. So this is just something to be mindful of. Make sure you constantly check the signal on your actual controller, and make sure you check through the Wi-Fi settings as well. You can definitely see that they have limited a few of the options in the Mavic Air just so that they don't cut into the Mavic Pro sales. Now, one thing they've really limited is the color profiles. So we only have the option of normal or D-Cine-like. Now, D-Cine-like is actually a really nice color profile, and that's something I would recommend, but normal actually looks relatively nice as well. You can go through your color styles and adjust those just to make the image a little flatter so it's better in post-production, but that's just something that you will need to kind of feel for yourself and test out. But yes, it is definitely a lot more limited than the Mavic Pro and some of the other drones they have on the market. Now, the other thing I really liked about the Mavic Air is they streamlined all of the intelligent flight modes, so we only have the crucial ones that are extremely important, well, in my opinion anyway. We have normal, we have the quick shot, which actually includes different modes. You have droney, circle, helix, rocket, and then the two new modes, boomerang and asteroid. And then we have active track, which you just draw around a subject and will automatically track them. You have smart capture, which is the gesture controls with your hands. You have tripod mode, which just limits the speed of the motors so you get very slow movements. You have cinematic mode, which again limits certain movements so you get very cinematic slow movements as you're moving, yawing, tilting, whatever you're doing. You have tap to fly or tap fly, so you tap and it will automatically fly in that direction. You set a speed and boom, Bob's your uncle. And then you have point of interest, which again you can just have a point of interest and customize how you want the drone to fly around it, what speeds, whatever else. So very useful features, and they've streamlined it so it's just on the one page, so you don't have to swipe across. You just go into your intelligent flight modes and you have all of these options available to you. One thing that is actually very limiting is the clearance that's available to you when you're landing and taking off. You actually have to be really mindful of where you're going to land this little drone, and that was one of the issues that I noticed with the Spark actually. Just no clearance for the camera, and you kind of are a little bit worried that you're going to screw the gimbal up in some way. So I definitely recommend checking out some landing gear and just make sure that you land in an area that isn't, you know, extremely overrun with grass or rocks or whatever else that may get caught up in the propellers and may kind of bottom out your camera, because it is very, very low to the ground. The 3-axis gimbal works really well though, and I was extremely impressed with the whole enclosed design. I honestly prefer that to the Mavic Pro. The Mavic Pro has a very open design that seems like it's open to the elements and possibly could get damaged very easily. Now, I've been very careful with my Mavic Pro and I haven't had any issues, but a lot of people have left messages in the forums and commented on some of my videos saying that their gimbals have screwed up on their Mavic Pro. So honestly, the Mavic Air design is a lot nicer. It houses a 3-axis gimbal with a beautiful 4K camera, and that honestly works really well, and I actually definitely do prefer that over the Mavic Pro's design. Also, when it comes to battery life, I did a few different tests and I got anywhere from 17 to 19 minutes, and that was when I was flying down to about 14 or 16%, so I cancelled return to home, kept it really close to me, and then landed at about 14%. And this was me using different modes and functions as well, so I even had it in sports mode, I recorded for a bit, I flew around, tested it just in a normal kind of situation, and then brought it back, and I got 17 to 19 minutes of battery life, which is okay, but I mean, it really isn't fantastic if you only have the one battery. You kind of need the fly more combo if you want a solid flight. I was honestly really impressed with how the Air handled strong winds. It honestly did a fantastic job. I flew it in extremely open, windy situations, even over the water, and it seemed to do a really good job, so I was extremely impressed in that kind of situation. And it actually handles the wind just as well as the Mavic Pro does. The Mavic Pro can handle more intense winds, but the Air is definitely a close second, and it does a great job in most situations you're going to put it in. One thing that I noticed that reminded me of the Spark is how attracted birds are to the Air. Now, I got the white edition of the Air, but for some reason birds always seem to dart around it and get extremely close to it, and I've never hit a bird, or I've never had a bird come like that close, but I mean, they're always just flying around and they're not intimidated by it, which the Mavic Pro, they seem to be intimidated by. It's big, it's got a larger presence, and they don't seem to challenge it too much, but it's almost like we're flying in their territory, so I guess just be mindful of birds and really keep an eye out when you're flying your Air, and definitely when you're flying your Spark as well. I had a comment the other day asking me why I don't upload in 4K, and honestly it's because we have terrible internet in Australia, and it's just too much of an effort to upload in 4K, so everything I filmed was filmed in 4K at 25 frames per second, and then I have rendered it in 1080p at 25 frames per second. The only other footage that has been shot in 1080p is the slow motion footage, which was shot at 1080p at 120 frames per second, and it actually is automatically in slow motion, so you don't even have to do anything in post-production. You can obviously speed it up or slow it down a bit more, but it's ready to go in slow motion at 120 frames per second, and it honestly looks amazing. So the slow motion footage is in 1080, everything else is in 4K. The Mavic Air also offers 32 megapixel sphere panoramas, which I can't really show you in this video as they are 360 degree sphere videos, but you can use them for the DJI goggles or put it on a 360 viewing website or whatever else and put it on your computer and view it in 360, and it takes 25 photos in 8 seconds. But the photo option that I was really impressed by was the panorama, just the 180 degree viewing angle, and that one looks really beautiful. I got some nice shots using that, and there are some other really nice photo options, so this is definitely a robust drone that offers a lot of variation in its shooting options. I mentioned before that this drone can shoot in 4K, and it can shoot in 4K up to 30 frames per second at 100 megabits per second, which is again increased on the Mavic Pro, so you get a little bit more detail in the image, a little bit more data for you to play around with when you come to the post-production side of things, and honestly the footage does look really nice from the Mavic Air. When I originally picked up the Mavic Pro, I was blown away with how small it is, and then the Spark came out and that was even smaller again, and now the Mavic Air is just a hybrid of the two. You get all of the features, or most of the features that the Pro has, with the portability and size, and also the gesture controls that the Spark has. Now the gesture controls, which I'll get onto in a second, are a lot better in the Air, but I really do love how small and portable this drone is. It's a perfect travel companion. One thing that annoys me a little bit is you don't have the folding propellers. Yes, the arms fold in, but the propellers don't fold in, which is annoying. It makes it kind of a little bit of a worry when you chuck it in a bag or when you kind of pull it out of a bag in case it gets caught on something and bends a propeller, but that may come out in the future. We may have folding propellers, and there's also been some videos online of people using Spark's folding propellers on the Air, and apparently it works really well, so that's also another possibility. Now, I tested flying into a tree with the obstacle avoidance and also flying into a friend as well, and the sensors did a really good job. They're constantly beeping, which kind of gets frustrating, but it's obviously a safety thing, and it does a really good job. You can get close to objects and then it will actually navigate around it if you've got it in a tap to fly mode or in another intelligent flight mode. It's actually really smart, and it can fly around objects if you're in the environment, filming nice and close to trees or whatever else. So that's really cool, and the obstacle avoidance is definitely superior to other drones that I've tested in the past. It's just really reliable and pretty much consistent all the time, which is fantastic. One of my favorite features of the Mavic Air is its smart capture, which is basically just the advanced gesture controls that we saw in the Spark, but this is almost like gesture controls 2.0. Now honestly, they've improved it drastically over the Spark. You don't have the option to hand or palm launch and palm land at the moment. I'm sure that may come out in a software update, but you actually just place it down on the ground like you would normally to take off, and then you just put your hand out when you're in the smart capture mode. It will automatically see that your hand is there, and it will take off to a certain point, and then it will follow your hand. Now if you put your hand down, it will go automatically into a follow mode and you can just run off and get some really cool shots there. You've also got gestures to push it away, pull it closer, to record and take pictures, and they're all really easy to use, and I've got footage now of basically me doing that. It's a peace symbol to take a photo, you create a frame around your face to start a video, you put your hands together and then pull them apart to actually push the drone away, and then pull them closer together to pull it back to yourself. And then you can literally land by just pulling your hand down to the ground as well. So honestly, the smart capture is probably a lot more reliable and consistent than the Sparks version of the gesture controls, and I've been really happy with it so far. It actually does a really good job of just following you and just filming. So you can put it in slow motion, which I've got some footage of that, and it's just following me. That's just in the smart capture mode in 1080p at 120 frames per second, and it looks amazing. It looks honestly fantastic, so I'm really impressed with that side of things. I'm also really happy with the gimbal cover, the actual cover to the camera on the actual Mavic Air, which is, again, a lot better than the Mavic Pro. The Mavic Pro has a loose gimbal that just kind of flails around, and the cover isn't as intuitive as this one. It's very easy to put on, and it's super protective of the camera and the gimbal, so I'm honestly really happy with that. And the overall package of the Mavic Air is just fantastic. So this is a really good starting drone. It's a lot more affordable than the Pro. You get some really good options when it comes to controls, intelligent flight modes, how it handles. I didn't even mention the speed. It's also a very zippy little bird. Get it? Bird. Yes, but this drone is very fast, really cool features, and I love everything about it so far. I've been testing it thoroughly. I will have another review coming out. This is just my before you buy, basically the stuff that I've noticed, maybe negative or positive, that you kind of need to know before you buy this drone here. These are all the questions that I would have liked to have known before I picked it up, but I mean, hey, I'm doing a bit of research myself, so why not? And a bit of trial and error and a bit of experience. So, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your opinions on the Air, and if you do pick one up, definitely let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more Mavic Air content on the channel, and peace out.